besides women and children. Wow. Who knew 5 loaves and 2 fish could go so far? Who knew that when we bring ourselves and present ourselves to Jesus Christ, that He can actually do something wonderful? And I want to look at what He does. And this is a little bit of a side note on the chapter, because the main point here is we'll see is that it's really about Jesus showing an enormous need to us reacting to that, but then Him showing how He can fulfill the needs of anyone if we will but give ourselves over to Him. But notice what He does, because I love this spiritual picture about what He does in the life of a disciple whose life is given to Him. First, He takes what is offered. He looks to heaven. He blesses what is given, breaks it, then gives it back to the disciples, multiplied to give to others. So remember those key words. He took what was offered, He looked to heaven, He blessed what was given, broke it, and gave it. And I found in my own walk that this is often how the Lord works through us. And it reminds me of Moses. Way back in Exodus chapter 4, if you remember the story, poor old Moses ran into a little trouble trying to defend his people by the efforts of his own flesh. Remember that story where they were fighting amongst each other, and an Egyptian was treating an Israeli badly, and Moses killed the Egyptian. It's like, I can do this myself. Here's my 5 loaves and 2 fish, Lord. And, he had a murder charge out on him. He was on, Egypt's Most Wanted. They had his face and plastered around all the post offices and all this kind of stuff. So he had to get out of town and get out of the country, and went out and became a shepherd, hid away in a desolate place. And then one day he's going along and he sees a burning bush. And so he goes up to the burning bush, and you know the story, take off your sandals, the ground that you're standing on is holy, and the burning bush introduces itself and says, I'm God, and I'm sending you back. Well, God, I've already been there, and they'll string me up if I go back. And God is like saying, you're not going to go back in your own power anymore. You're going to go back in mine. Well, I don't have any power, God. You're going to speak to Pharaoh, and he's going to let you go. And he's going, but I don't know how to speak. I have trouble. I have a speech impediment of some kind. I stutter. I have a lisp. We don't know what it was, but he didn't feel comfortable speaking to anybody. And so God says to him, and this is the part that I love, he goes, okay, you're going to perform some signs. And he says, what do you got in your hand, Moses? Mo, I call him. What do you got in your hand? Oh, I got a shepherd's staff. This is what I've done now that I have run away from Pharaoh's court. All right, throw it down. Okay, and when he threw it down, what happened? It became a snake. And then God told him, all right, now reach down and grab the snake by the tail. Right. God, did you not know you're supposed to grab... Actually, you're supposed to run away from snakes. But if you have to grab the snake, you grab it by the head so it can't turn around and bite you. Grabbing it by the tail, Lord, wrong answer. But God says, no, grab it by the tail. And he did, and it turned back into a staff. But the point was, God said, what are you bringing to me? What is your little boy's lunch? It's a staff. All right, take the staff, and I want you to throw it down. Give it to me as an offering. What you have, I want. I will take that and I will do something miraculous with it, and I will perform a sign that will really get your people released from Egypt. It doesn't matter what you have in your hand. No matter how minuscule you think your life is, the talents, the gifts, the background, the abilities that you have, if you take them and try to make them of themselves work for God, it'll be nothing more than a staff or a little boy's lunch. But if you're willing to offer those things to God, He will do something miraculous to them. But here's how He does it. First, He looks to heaven, and He recognizes and acknowledges that God is the source of everything that takes place through your life. It's not just kind of ginned up by us, created by the power of our own flesh. When we place ourselves in God's hand, we look to Him as the source. And then secondly, He blesses what we offer. It's only through Jesus Christ that what we have can actually make something, can actually do something, can actually fulfill a need. But notice what happens to the bread. He breaks it. Just as so often, Jesus breaks us of our own pride and self-sufficiency so that we realize how much we must utterly depend on Him. And then, and only then, is the bread given back to the disciple to give out to the people, no longer just 5 loaves, but thousands of loaves. And here's an important point. It's not to show off their power or who they know. This is a crucial mistake that some people make. They see the power of God and they think, hey, I got to get me some of that. That's pretty cool. You know, I can do a miracle. And people will look at me and go, miracle power flows through His hands. And then people will start coming, and we kind of fool ourselves into thinking that, yeah, people will come, I'll tell them the gospel, they'll get saved, this great thing will be built, and in reality all you're doing is building an edifice of wood, hay, and straw around yourself. We are here for 2 reasons. To be transformed into the image of God in order to bring Him glory, and using that transformed character, see as many people brought into the kingdom of God. But it's not that people need to see you, it's that people need to see Jesus. And it's not just a power to show off, but it has to be part of God's plan. Well, this certainly was a miracle. There probably were 10,000 people or more there that got fed that morning or that evening. Wow, incredible. Now, we're going to go on into verse 22 next time, but I like this. What's the next word? So, here are the disciples, Jesus is breaking the bread, and He breaks it and He drops it into the thing, and the 5 loaves became a whole basket. I don't know, wouldn't that have been cool to have watched that happen? And then, okay, here's a basket, break, and the baskets keep going out. Okay, got more, and the disciples are probably walking around like, I don't know where this came from. And then the whole thing is done, and they go around. Isn't that nice of them that they picked up after themselves? But they picked up 12 baskets full of fragments. So here's each disciple holding on to a basket full of bread and fish that was left over from this miracle. And after the whole thing was over, then you start thinking, hey, that was pretty cool, wasn't it? Let's do that again, Jesus. They're all done, set the baskets down, and then the next word is immediately. He made the disciples get into the boat and go before Him to the other side. We're not going to stay here resting on the laurels you now think you have. I want you to get in that boat, boys, and I want you to head off. And Jesus, I think, knows that what He's sending them into is not going to be a time of patting each other on the back for the wonderful miracle that they helped out on. They're going to be afraid for their lives. But we'll get to that next time. I just wanted to talk about a couple of quick things in conclusion here. Again, what's the main point of this chapter?